So I finally got my new power supply in the mail. I just got done doing an AM5 build. Unfortunately, I had to take out my old AM4 power supply, which is a Corsair RM850X. I had to take it out of that build and put it in my new build while I waited for the new power supply to come. And my new power supply is the Corsair RM1000X, and it's their new Shift Series. And the Shift Series is based on the new ATX 3.0 design, which also comes with the new 12, I think it's a 12 pin, the new 12 pin connector that you would see in the new 40 series GPUs. So if you didn't want to use the supply connector that came with the 40 series GPU, this power supply does come with it. So let's unbox it, take a look at everything, and compare it to the old Corsair RM line of GPUs, or PSUs, to see what other differences that we're going to see. Now, the other main difference with the new Shift Series, and why it's called Shift, is that they moved the cable connectors from the back of the PSU to the side of the PSU. So we'll take a good look at that when I get this open up. Then we will install it, and we'll throw it in the garbage, on the ground, and take a look at what it is. So this is the 1000 watt. It is 80 plus gold, comes with a 10-year warranty. It's ATX 3.0, so it supplies up to 450 watts to the 12-pin connector, their PCIe 5.0 connector, or whatever you want to call it. If you want to go up to, I don't know if anything actually takes 600 watts, but it can draw up to 600 watts, but you need to go to the higher, I'm assuming the 1200 watt PSU to get the 600 watts. Well, unlike, oh wait, does it come with it? See it there. These are just the cables. Yes, unfortunately, unlike the old Corsair, came with a nifty little bag that you can put all your connectors in. This one is just in a see-through plastic bag. Alright, so aside from cables, you get a little safety compliance booklet that can go down there. We get our power supply, and we get our cables. Silent operation at low to moderate loads. That's interesting. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's check out the size comparison. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little bit bigger, where it's 1000 watts, and it is. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see very well right there. Let me check. So it is about 3/4 of an inch longer than the 850 from the old series. It's only, it's roughly the same height and the same width, everything else. So it's just slightly longer. Weight is pretty even. Comes with a bigger fan on the top for cooling. And like I said, so instead of having the connectors at the back of the PSU, it's on the side, which should make it a lot easier to access. However, if you have a case that isn't very wide, when you put the side panel on and it's brushing up against the cables, you might not be able to close the case. But there is... they did make some adjustments to make up for that, and I'll point that out. So right now, this is what the cables would look like for your CPU if you were to connect that in. It's not very malleable. It's pretty stiff, and they're pretty big. So let me get CPU. So the cable that plugs in to your either your motherboard for supplying power to the CPU or to the graphics card is this one, which works out to be this big. The one that's plugging in to the back of the PSU or the side is this. It is substantially smaller. So you do have a much smaller plug to work with. Hopefully that, you know, is going to stand up over time and handle the stress of these cables being, you know, bent and all that, because they are much smaller. So I'm assuming there's a lot less contact area with those cables into the plastic clip, but it is a lot smaller. This also has, you can see, it allows you to move your cables around and put them in the direction that might be best, depending on how you're cable managing. That's going to put the least amount or like best path to cable manage, because you see some of the clips are going this way, some are going up, and some are going down. So that just gives you a little bit more wiggle room to move those cables around your case. So the case I have is the Corsair 5000D. It has lots of room. There's not going to be an issue with the side panel pushing up on the case. But some of the smaller ones, I'm pretty sure, like my 465X, it would be, I think it would be comparable to the 4000D, but I don't know if it's the same. It's got the same kind of space in the back for cable management as the 4000D. But let's use this. We're gonna plug it in here. So yeah, the cables are a lot more flexible. So you have like maybe, let me get a measuring, my trusty old crappy metal ruler. This, yeah, you're working with like 3/4 of an inch. It's gonna stick out comfortably without pushing on it and putting too much force on the plastic clip. So that's not too bad compared to this one with these older, let's see here. No, that one has, yeah. These stick out just a little over an inch. So yeah, you do have a little bit more flexibility using the cable. But again, the bonus of this is that you either have it going up, push down, or going to the side. Whereas this, if you want to go to the side, it doesn't. No, it still pushes in pretty much the same. It sticks it a little over an inch. The one thing I do like right off the bat, I prefer this style of cable. If you don't plan on putting extensions or, you know, buying aftermarket cables for your power supply, I much rather have this style of cable. It looks a lot better, I find, than this with the whatever shrink wrap over the top and the braided piece that goes over top of the cabling. I don't like it, and I find it stiff, especially like when you're dealing with the 24-pin motherboard connector. Like that's all you have to work with, and it can get pretty stiff because this does not bend. Whereas this, let's find it. Yeah, you got a lot more to play with here for the 24-pin connector. All the cables are the same style as the PCIe cable, so that's kind of nice. I do like that a lot better. I probably won't be using my white braided cable extension. I'll probably stick with these because these look pretty nice, and they're a lot more, yeah, my cable extensions are a little on the stiff side. These are not as, I find, flexible as this. So we'll see. With that, and let's see, where is the 24-pin connector? Nope. Okay, I'm getting a little worried here. There we go, finally. So, instead of having to use 2 or 3 PCIe connectors to power your GPU, you just need to use this one 12-pin connector. So it has 12 pins right there for power, but it also has, I think, looks like there's only two. Yeah, there's only two connectors. There's 4 pinholes here, if you can see that, but only 2 of them actually have a cable going to that. And this is supposed to be able to talk to your PSU to figure out how much power your GPU needs and for better operation. Or on the flip side, if your power supply has less power than what your GPU needs, like if it can't put out that much more, your GPU will still be able to run, but it'll be running on a power reduce mode. So you'll still be able to log in, get into your GPU and everything like that, and go from there. So you'll still be able to log in and everything, and boot, but your GPU will run at a lower powered mode, so you won't get all the performance that you would want out of it. So it goes, okay, so that's it, and it plugs into 2. Oh, it's only going to plug into 2 of the Type 5. So is that a specific? It doesn't have a specific plugins in the back, so I think it just plugs into any of the PCIe CPU plugs. It's just got to take up 2 of them instead of 3. You're going to be able to get the 450 watts out of this, and yeah, this seems to be definitely okay. So that's definitely a little bit more valuable than you get the one on my 4070 Ti. Let's see here. So 4070 Ti can comfortably bend. This is the cable that came with it. Can comfortably bend like that. Whereas this one, let's see here. Yeah, you probably have about 1/4 of an inch extra give on this versus the 4070 Ti cable. So you don't have to worry about as much your side, well, I guess your front panel, whatever you want to call it, that side panel, usually the glass panel, pushing up against it and putting too much pressure on the connector. So that's a bonus as well there, because that's one of the things I'm worried about right now with mine, is that when I have this put into my Corsair 465X, the glass panel actually pushes up against the cable. So those of you with a tighter or a smaller case, this might be a little bit more beneficial, unless you want to just leave the side panel off. So ATX 2.0 versus ATX 3.0. Come on, cable, get it. From what I gather, the new ATX 3.0 architecture for the PSU is supposed to be more power efficient, especially at idle. It's not going to be drawing as much power, supposedly, as the older ATX 2.0 model. It's supposed to handle spikes a lot better. So there's, again, if at any point in time your GPU needs to pull more power than what the power supply can handle, again, going back to the ATX 2.0, it's supposed to be able to handle the extra pull up to triple what it's rated. So if you're using a 400 watt GPU and all of a sudden it spikes and it needs to pull 1200 watts, it's supposed to be able to pull that additional load for up to, I think, 100 milliseconds without causing any issues. So you don't have to worry about any crashes or stuff like that. So you're going to get better performance that way. And well, because of that, there's additional transistors and resistors, whatever it is, inside here to be able to handle that extra load. So all around, it's designed for the more modern GPUs, because as you can tell, the power requirements keep going up and up and up compared to some of the old ones. Like, it used to only be, I think, a max of 225 a couple years ago. Now you're getting anywheres up to, let's see, what is the new 4090 rated to handle? Yeah, so the 4090 is needs to handle 450 watts. So over the past few years, like the power requirement is almost doubled, just because the newer GPUs, the performance is just out of this world. So that's what the new design is coming from, is to be able to better support those higher end GPUs. If you're not going for the higher end GPU, the lower end model power supplies are fine. But when you start getting into like the 4090s, the 4090 Ti will eventually come out, or even next generation 5000 or 50 series cards, they're just going to be a bigger and bigger demand on power. And that's what this is supposed to be able to handle. But this is less about the new power design and more about talking about the new how they shifted the connectors to the side of the power supply, as well as the new cables. So aside that, like everything, all the cables are pretty much the same. We got the 24 pin, and it's designed the same. It's just that what's being connected in to the side, instead of being the same size as the pin that connects into your motherboard, they are shrinking by quite a bit. So there's a good comparison. That's to the new Shift Series. This is the 24 pin connector to the old design, and these are like a third longer, like just the one, what is that, a 16 pin? So that's an 18 pin connector plus a 12 or 10 pin connector. The standalone 18 pin connector is about as long as the two combined that's going to be plugging into the power supply. So again, much smaller, gives you a little bit more flexibility. They don't stick out as much, so it does cut down on the amount of room that you'd have to worry about it poking out and trying to close your side panel. Again, I have that concern that hopefully the stress of these being bent, these smaller connectors can handle it. So let's go ahead and try and install this in my 4000, the 5000 Corsair 5000D, and see how it looks and feels inside of there. And will I have an issue closing the side panel? I don't think I will. All right, so where I don't have to, try and get to the power supply from the back, I'm not going to bother putting the cables in to begin with. I'm going to screw the power supply in first and then put the cables in. So just a little FYI, if your case has a perforated bottom for airflow, make sure that the fan on your power supply is pointed downwards. This needs to come off, make it easier. So this case offers a lot of room to move around in. Some cases this might be a little bit more difficult to get everything lined up, but this one offers a lot of room. So now that we have the power supply in and screwed in, let's go ahead and add the connectors. I do not at this time, because I'm using a 7900 XT in here, not the 4070 Ti, so I do not need the new PCIe 5.0 power connector. I will just need two 8-pin. So I need two 8-pin connectors for... The other thing I like about this, they're not, at least the ones I've looked at so far, they're not daisy chained together. The GPU PCIe power connectors that are on the old one are daisy chained. So if you only need one clip, it's kind of ugly having both those sticking out. This only has the one on each of them. So even from there, it's going to make your build look better if you're not using any kind of cable extensions, and it's also going to take up less room. So you'll have more to work with, more space to work with. So I need 2 for the GPU, and I'll need 2 for the motherboard, and I'll need my 24-pin connector, and I will need, well, look at that, it does come with a Molex connector. So if you have some older fans or anything like that, but I am going to need one SATA connector for the fan controller. All right. This one's already open, so we'll just swap you out. There are a lot of connectors in here. There's probably at least another 4 PCIe connectors, a couple more SATA connectors. So it does come with a lot of connectivity. Let's see. We'll get. Let's do the motherboard first. See, there's lots of room with that cable pushed in all the way back there. So this makes it, having it to the side does make it a lot easier. You have much better access to all the cables to do any upgrades or to switch anything around. You don't have to fuss with anything at the back of the power supply. However, it does make it a little bit messier off to the side, as you can see, whereas if the power supply had all the connectors in the back, you can kind of just shove everything back there. So if you don't have very much room on the side, this might not be the best, because it's going to clump everything up. If you have hard drive bays in behind the power supply, this is definitely a better way to go about it, because you don't have as much of a mess in behind that is taking up space that the hard drive bay might take up, which in this case probably work out for me, because I do have a hard drive bay that will need to go back here, and I should be able to fit it back there and then have all the cables just kind of, after I get it tied up, sitting right there in front of it. So you saw the back, but here's what the front looks like. So these cables can just get, they do look a lot better. This would probably look a lot better if I had these cables going through the side here instead of being pushed down below. I might change that later. We'll see, but for me, that's not a big deal. Up at the top, got them sticking out a little bit. They're pushing. But again, if I had those tied down with some Velcro straps or some zip ties, that would hold it back better. And then we have this. So yeah, in my opinion, this looks a lot better than the old RX 850. Is it RX or RM? Can't even remember now. But yeah, those cables look a lot better than the old cables. I like that a lot better. What do you think?